buy another one again if you don't want to. It's just a nice tool to have.
Okay.
And this is the what cartridge?
Duo clear cartridge,
Okay. And the one in there now lasts how long?
30 days from today,
And then this one lasts
6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you're the type of people that buy things online, on the box top, there's that part number. And so you want to use that to buy it, because that's the right one that goes in your system for the gallons of your pool.
Oh, okay.
Or even if you go to the pool store, you want to make sure you get the right one.
Okay.
And at my house, we use that at my house, but I don't buy one every 6 months because we don't swim in the winter. And I don't think you'll be swimming in the winter without a heater. And so usually right around Mother's Day every year in May, I put that cartridge in, and I know it's going to give me 6 months, which gets me into November. So from that May to November, I can keep my chlorine level really low. And once that expires in November, instead of buying another one, I just bump the chlorine up and maintain this higher level in that ideal range.
Okay.
But it takes very little chlorine to maintain that higher level because the water's cold and nobody's swimming. So for us, we're money ahead by just buying one every 6 months
Okay.
and turning the chlorine up and down.
So this is the in the back silver nitrate, but the chlorine tablets you get from Leslie's and
Correct. Yep.
Cool.
Then the next thing, if you're, when you got your glasses on and you're reading this, it talks about bromine, and you're not using bromine in your pool, so disregard the bromine test.
Okay.
okay.
The next one is the pH, and that's what's going to give you the most grief over the next few days, or next few weeks, I should say. And I recommend you test this pool if you're around every other day for the next 30 days, and then after that, it's once a week.
Okay.
Again, because as that plaster cures, it's going to have a tendency to do things to your water you need to stay on top of, and the only way on what's going on is by testing it.
Okay.
And the pH is what's going to give you the most grief. And you want to keep that pH in that 7.2 to 7.6 range. You can see that's the ideal range.
Sure.
Whenever you test your pH, typically, while the plaster is curing, it has a tendency to drive your pH above the ideal range.
Oh.
And whenever you see your pH above the ideal range, like it says, that's when you're going to add some more of that muriatic acid.
Okay.
And no longer you're going to put in 6 gallons or 8 gallons or whatever they had you to start off with. If you see your pH just barely above the ideal range, a pool this size, you're going to put in somewhere between a pint and a quart of acid.
Pint and a quart.
Yep,
Okay.
and you don't need to get anything special, measure a pint to a quarter of a gallon, just eyeball it, just to get
Okay.
it close. If it gets as high on the charts as it can go or off the charts, they will take a minimum of a quart and possibly up to a half of a gallon of acid.
Okay.
But what you'll find is next week the pH won't go as high, and you're not going to have to put in as much acid because the plaster will have cured some. And the week after that it will be less, and the week after that. Every week it's easier
And
and
then
easier
pretty
to take
soon it
care of.
just levels out.
Eventually it's going to level out and do what it's
Okay.
supposed to do. But here in the beginning, it's probably going to have a tendency to want to go to the high side.
So how often should you test that every day, the
Every,
pH?
every other day.
Every other day. Okay.
For
Every
the
other-
first 30 days, and then after that it's just once a week.
Okay. And during the winter too, test everything once a week?
Once a week, yeah.
Okay.
It's not near as critical, but I mean,
But-
it literally doesn't take 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
It'll probably save you a lot of headache from
And
having to
probably
fix
sit-
problems.
Yep.
Yeah.
People that complain about their pools always getting out of whack and costing a lot of money are the people that let it get
Who don't maintain it?
correct.
Okay.
Just like you don't ever change the oil in your car. Cars are inexpensive until you don't change your oil.
Yeah.
You know why it
Okay.
costs. It's not the car's
It's all
fault.
pretty simple.
Okay.
Yep. Now, when you put the acid in, no longer do you want to dilute it down. I don't know if they had you dilute it
I
down the
did.
first time.
Yeah.
But no longer will you do that. You're just going to pour it straight into the pool. Just walk along the edge, pouring in how much you need to pour in.
Okay.
And make sure the pump is on, the water circulating. And then just be really careful that you don't get any on the coping, that travertine.
Yeah,
because
they
it will
said-
etch it
Turn it yellow.
after it eats a hole in it.
Oh, okay.
So, and you'll know if you get some on it because you'll see it start to bubble up and fizz. So you don't have time to get a hose, just splash a couple handfuls of pool water on it, and then that'll be all you need to do.
Okay.
Just make sure you don't get any on the stone. And just don't pour it over anything really shallow like the steps or the benches.
Sure.
And then literally within 10, 15 minutes of putting the acid in, it's plenty safe enough for people to jump in and go swimming. That's not an issue at
Okay.
all. Now, if you put in too much acid and you find your pH below the ideal range,
Uh-huh.
just put in some regular, well, soda ash, pH increaser, and they'll have that at the pool store. So if you
Okay.
need it, just, that's what they'll have there.
So
for
just
it.
kind of have stuff like that on hand.
Yeah, and not very often will you need the pH increaser. They sell pretty small containers of it, usually 2 4-pounders. You know, it's just gonna
Okay.
take maybe a pound at a time, but very rarely would you ever need that.
Does that stuff have a shelf life? Does it go bad after so long, or you can sit
That
on your
product
shelf
doesn't.
forever? Okay.
Yep, that stuff will last forever.
Okay.
Cool.
So, now the next thing listed on the card you'd be testing for is the total alkalinity, and that alkalinity, you can think of it as a base that the pH draws off of. So typically, if the alkalinity is low, it will pull the pH down, and typically if the alkalinity is high, it will push the pH up. They usually track one another really well like that.
Okay.
Then you would treat the alkalinity. If it's too high, just like the pH, you're gonna put acid in. If the alkalinity is too low, you'd put in just regular Arm & Hammer baking soda. In a pool this size, it'd be just a 1 pound box of baking soda is all it's gonna take.
Okay.
But what can happen here in the beginning, and it oftentimes does, is if your alkalinity is okay and the pH is really high, well, if you put in acid to bring the pH down, you're gonna drop the alkalinity. And then when you put in baking soda to bring the alkalinity up, you just push the pH back up and you wind up chasing your tail. So for the first month, I tell people skip the alkalinity. It's the
Okay.
chlorine and the pH, they're the ones you need to be concerned with.
Okay.
And if you take your water to the pool store, they need to understand it's new plaster also, and so
Okay.
they just hopefully disregard the alkalinity one.
Okay.
And you're gonna wanna take your water to the pool store here sooner than later, probably by this weekend anyway. And you know, you'll just take them a little Tupperware thing full of it, and then they'll give you a water sample bottle you can use forever down the road. And it would need to be your first stop, because if that water gets to be 45 minutes, an hour old in that container, it's just no good anymore. So just drive straight there and have them test it. But one of the things that you'll wanna have tested for right away is the hardness, the calcium level in the pool. And I know it's low out here because obviously theirs was low. So I'm sure you're probably on the same water district as they are. And if the water in your pool is low, just like the blood in your body, if there's not enough calcium in your blood, it's gonna leach it out of your bones. If you don't have enough calcium in that water, it's gonna leach it out of that soft plaster. So that's something you certainly wanna have the pool store test for you right away.
Is
And
the
if you-
calcium.
Yep, if you need calcium, you need to put a little bit of calcium in there.
Okay.
And they'll tell you exactly how much you need to put in if you do need some. Now, another thing that they will test for, and I don't know if you got any of it, it was some stabilizer or conditioner. And you can think of that product, it's kind of like suntan lotion for the chlorine that's in your pool. That conditioner just protects the chlorine against UV rays from the sun. So if you don't have enough conditioner, you'll find you go through a whole lot more chlorine than you want to. And again, there isn't a test for that here, so that's one of those things you'll take your water to the pool store periodically and they'll test for you. And if you need it, it's gonna be just a one-time application at startup, so don't buy more than you need. Because if you buy good 3-inch tablets, they actually have that conditioner in them. So once you've got to where it needs to be at startup, as those tablets dissolve, it'll maintain the level for you.
Okay.
But with your pool being in the sun, the hottest part of the day it looks like, and if you don't have enough of that in there, you're just gonna burn up the chlorine, so.
Okay.
So, but the chlorine tablets at Leslie's, the good ones, have it in there?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so buy 'em, yeah.
And just about any 3-inch trichlor tablets, and the first active ingredient for 3-inch tablets usually says trichlor, just about all of them have that in it. Some of them have a little bit more than others, but Leslie's, their prices they're within a couple bucks of anybody else.
It's worth it,
You know
yeah.
you're getting good stuff.
Okay.
Now, shocking the pool, I'm sure you remember that from when you were a lifeguard, you have to shock periodically.
We used to shock the pool to go play handball.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing to do after you shocked it. so-
Yeah, so we used to play handball on this big wall.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
And so Anthony's sending along a couple bags of shock. And you're gonna wanna shock this pool periodically. And if you talk to people at the pool store, read some of the literature, you can get it if that's your work.
no, it's all good.
You sure?
Yeah, let me text this fella back.
Yeah.
When you say periodically, what does that mean?
Well,
Monthly?
I have no pool knowledge, so.
if you talk to the people at the pool store, they'll tell you to shock it every 1 to 2 weeks during the swimming season.
Yeah.
Or if you read the literature that Anthony Soden sent along, but because you have that ozone generator on your pool, it cuts way, way back on the amount of times you would shock your pool.
Okay.
So you'd only need to shock it once every 4 to 6 weeks during the swimming season.
Okay.
And you can easily go 6 to 8 weeks in the winter months when the pool's not being swam in.
Okay.
But in addition to that, when you may want to shock the pool, is if you have a really heavy rain, and not just a passing shower, but one of those 2, 3, 4 inches of rain in a day
Yeah.
or two, you'd want to shock the pool.
Okay.
Or if you have a really heavy bather load and not just 2 or 3 people swimming all day long, but like if you have a birthday party or 4th of
Sure.
July, you got 10, 12, 15 people, after everybody's gone, shock. the
Hey,
pool.
let's sit down. Shoot.
You just follow the instructions on whatever type of shock it is that you get.
Okay.
How much to put in and how long to stay. But typically it's 1 pound per 10 to 12,000 gallons, and you usually want to stay out for a good 3 to 5 hours.
Okay.
How many gallons are in there?
And that's just what I was gonna look at here. On here,
I would say 12.
yep, on here, it says you've got 16,000 gallons.
Okay.
But you're gonna probably, the way they figure the gallons of your pool, when I say they, I mean anybody that uses Pool Draw, which is the most prevalent drawing program out there in the pool industry. What it does, it takes the surface area times the average depth times 7.5, and that's where it comes up with that number. But what it doesn't take into account is the volume of water that Sun Shelf takes up, the steps that
Oh,
swim out
sure.
down there. And that's a huge volume of water. And when you add chemicals, you're always better off figuring on the low side and adding a little bit more if you need to, as opposed to putting too many chemicals in, trying to take it out just doesn't work.
Okay.
So again, on here, it says 16. And that's at the deepest part of the pool. That big shelf circles a long ways down.
Yeah. It's only 5 feet deep, I think, roughly.
And I'd probably say, when you said 12, I'd start off at around 12.
Okay.
And then as you're adding chemicals, if it always winds up at 12,000, you need to add a little bit more, well then bump it up to 13. If you're
Okay.
overshooting it at 12, then bump it back to 11. But 12 would be a good place to start off with.
Okay.
Like 12,000 gallons estimating for the pool. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that'd be a good place to start. And we'll probably wind up shocking it today. You guys can go swimming today, so I can shock it before I leave, or you can shock it at the end of the day after you're done swimming, either way, but want to probably get some in there today.
Okay.
Because this water up here has a tendency, if it goes, I mean, one afternoon too long, it'll, like hers, she said was a greenish color. When she came home that night, you couldn't see the second step.
Yeah.
Some water will do that.
Because it didn't get shocked? Or?
Well, there just wasn't nothing in there, and who knows if there was a lot of debris or a passing shower, just
Yeah,
dropped a bunch of
yeah,
stuff in the pool.
theirs was green as all get out. I've never had that problem since we put the water in, so.
And hers was like this for the first few days, she said, but then literally in one afternoon, it just, and algae will do that. It's just waiting for the right conditions, and as soon as it has the right conditions,
I don't
it
think they
just
put enough
takes
acid
off.
in it, because I put more muriatic acid in this pool than they did in theirs.
Did ya?
Yeah, I just went off what Lupe told me.
Yeah.
So, and they put 1 gallon less, so, but that's just my,
Yeah.
I'm just guessing.
No, and that could make a difference.
Yeah.
When the pool's sitting there, but regardless, we'll get some in there today, one way or
Okay.
the other. And so typically you wanna stay out for a good 3 or 4 hours, so.
After you shock it.
Yeah, so if nobody's gonna be in that thing until later this afternoon, I could shock it now.
Yeah, we can shock it now and,
Okay. Now, a couple other things you need to be, that the pool store is gonna test for is, one of them is the, phosphates. And they're gonna tell you you need to add some stuff, take the phosphates out of the pool, some phos-free stuff.
yeah.
Don't buy it. It will actually destroy the filters that you have, and they
Okay.
won't give you $500 to buy new set filters.
Okay.
So,
Don't buy
don't
phosphates.
buy-
yeah, don't buy the phos-free. Anything to take the phosphates
Okay.
out of your pool.
Okay.
If you had a DE filter or sand filter where you can backwash to get that stuff out of there, you're okay.
But not on this.
Not on this.
Okay.
And they'll scare you and say you've got phosphates in your pool and your pool's gonna turn green. And it, actually, when you put that metal out in your pool, that red and white bottle of stain treat, it actually has phosphates in it to help bind the metals up.
Okay.
So don't, just disregard what they're telling you.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and test the water and see where you are.